And welcome in this new video tutorial in which I'm going to show you how to sculpt the human anatomy using Blender. So I'm going to use the base mesh that we've created together previously. If you have your own base mesh or you want to start from scratch, don't hesitate to do that. This tutorial is not a tutorial about Blender in particular. If you are comfortable with Mudbox or ZBrush, feel free to do that. It's not software dependent if you want. My goal with this tutorial is to share with you my knowledge about human anatomy and different tips and tricks that helped me when learning this complex subject. Again, I would like to apologize for my French accent. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to post them in the comments section. And if you like what I'm doing on this channel, don't hesitate to subscribe in order to have information about the new videos that will be released. So let's get started. I've opened the base mesh that I've created in the previous tutorial, and I'm going just to show you my setup in order to sculpt quickly in Blender. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go in the preferences, and in the preferences it's in edit preferences. As you can see, I've set up in the input section, I've set up emulate 3-button mouse in order to be able to navigate using a tablet and the Alt key of my keyboard. And this is pretty comfortable for me. So now I can use my stylus without clicking on any button. The only thing that I will do with the buttons is something very polygonal modeling oriented, but it's not going to be the majority of things that I'm going to do. So now what I will do is I will remove the wireframe of my base mesh. So by going to the little viewport overlay section, and I'm going to remove it, and I'm going to enter into sculpt mode. So by default you have different layers here, different workspace in Blender. I'm going to go in the sculpting section. Again, if you're using ZBrush or Mudbox, you don't care about this, but if you're following the tutorial with Blender, you can follow what I'm doing. I'm also going to set up some shortcuts. So the shortcuts that I'm going to set are pretty common for my ZBrush workflow or my Blender workflow about the different brushes. So if you're on ZBrush, you can do that too. So I'm going to select the grab brush, and I'm going to add a shortcut, so assign shortcut, and the shortcut that I'm going to do is Alt W. So Alt W is switching to the grab brush. I'm also going to do to add a shortcut with the clay strip brush. So oh, apparently I have already one. It's Alt C that I'm using. And Alt F is going to be assigned to the scrape brush. So I'm going to right click, assign shortcut, Alt F. And the way we can change the scale of a brush in Blender is the F key. Usually in ZBrush I'm pressing the space bar if you want to do that quickly. And the brushes that I'm using in Blender are pretty much those 3-1, and sometimes I'm using, or often I will say, I'm using the Crease Brush, and Crease is Shift C for me. Feel free to put the same shortcuts. So basically the grab brush will help us defining the silhouette of our character and make broad changes, such as, for instance, let's say that I want to move the jaw forward, or I want to change the way the neck connects to the head. I can do that here, and it's basically the brush that I'm using a lot in order to make changes. The crease brush is going to be really useful to create how can I say that, to create small creases basically. It's not going to be that much visible here because we don't have any polygons, sorry, we have some polygons, but we don't have enough polygons. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to apply the mirror modifier by pressing Alt A, and I'm going to remove the subdivision surface here. So as you can see here, I have a low poly character, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to add what is called the multi-resolution modifier, and I will be able there to subdivide. It's exactly the same thing in Mudbox and in ZBrush, the same concept. So as you can see, I've added some subdivision, and now we can see what the Crease Brush is doing. Okay, so it will help me to define some areas, and this will be a really good brush for helping us sculpting the different muscles. And the clay strip brush, the equivalent on ZBrush is the clay tube or the clay. Oh, I don't remember the name. Sorry, clay tube brush, I will say. And this is a clay buildup in ZBrush. It's clay buildup in ZBrush, but it's a way to add some clay basically on your mesh in a very, I will say, a very rough way. It's not smooth. Sorry, I'm going to shut down my my life advisor program. So yes, basically it's a way to quickly build up the different volumes that we're going to sculpt. Sorry. If you want to increase the strength of the brush, you can press Shift F, and as you can see with this brush, I can quickly increase the way the brush builds up, and this is pretty cool, I think. Maybe I'm going to add one more subdivision for now, just to show you a bit better the way it looks. And the cool thing with this is that you can smooth it and using the Shift key, like in ZBrush, and you will see that everything is like merging back. In Blender, you can press the Control key in order to remove some geometry, to not remove, but to dig into the geometry. So basically, the Control key is the reverse of the brush, the reverse action of the brush. So basically that's it. The scrape brush, by pressing Alt F now, is really cool for defining what we call planes in anatomy. And in anatomy, planes are really, really important. It's the way the form changes. So basically, for instance, let's say that here we have the temples of the character. I can use the scrape brush to emphasize the temples, as you can see, and this helps me to construct, to build up the shapes. Same thing here. If I want to flatten the different eyebrow section, I can do that like this. I can basically carve planes, or not carve, but define planes. And this is really, really important when sculpting. Okay? So, I think we can start. I'm going to remove the multi-rays and add it back in order to start from scratch. I'm going to subdivide it twice for now. And I'm going to basically start to define the different muscles and explain along what I'm doing. Okay, so when I'm sculpting the anatomy, what I like to do, even though it's an exercise, I like to do the full body at the same time, I would say. I don't want to concentrate on a specific part, at least for 80% of the workflow, I would say. When adding details, etc., it's at the end. You don't want to bother with details right now. You want to have a good-looking model with good-looking shapes and a nice silhouette. And in order to do this, I need to turn around the mesh a lot. I need to see my mesh from different angles, and I need to use a lot of references. The more you will sculpt, the less references you will be you will grab in your folder or on your second monitor, because you will have knowledge of the human anatomy that is more defined. But if you're a beginner, I will highly recommend putting something like 50 references on your second monitor, and like some from time to time scroll around and just have a look at the different take a look at your references, and like take breaks in order to basically understand the shapes that you are looking at. It's important to take good references, of course, with good lightings or good drawings or good schematic views. You don't want to take beginners' references, of course, but this is quite obvious. And if you want, you can also use a medical atlas, such as a really good program called Human Anatomy Atlas. I don't know the name in English because I have it in French, but I'm going to show you this program, which is pretty cool. It's not artistic, it's not artist friendly, I would say. It's more like, because as you can see, the anatomy is like, the design of the shapes are not that how can I say it, are not that that good looking. It's not the point of those kind of software, but the goal of this is that you can select the muscle and see, for instance, here I can look at the details and where it attaches, on the skeleton, and this is pretty good. So for at least a technical reference, so I will really advise you to have something like this, or even having, if you're really serious about this, having a quick figure, a real figure. 3D Total are doing gray models that are pretty cool, so, and pretty cheap compared to the others. So this is a good way also to see the anatomy and understand the different muscles. I will say that today we are going to do a generic male figure, and the female anatomy is going to be very subtle compared to the male. So I want to first do the male figure, because it's going to allow us to define the muscles way more. And maybe later we are going to do a tutorial about the female anatomy that has some differences in the gestural way and in the different masses of the body. So let's get started for real now. So the first thing that I'm going to do is, as usual, I'm wiggling around my model. I'm like saying what is going wrong with my base mesh, so I'm basically changing the different shapes. So for instance, here I'm going to change the cranium like this, and this I'm going to do it by heart, not by looking at some references, because I'm used to do that. For instance, here you can see that you have the clavicle, and the clavicle usually is more has more volume. Here it's just a simple like rope. I don't want this, so I'm going to adjust that later. But as you can see, I'm putting the shape in a bike handle way, and basically I'm looking at the silhouette right now. You can see that the ear is a bit distorted here, so I'm moving it. As you can see, I'm doing a lot of moves, small tweaks, and if I'm not happy with what I'm doing, Ctrl Z is your friend. Sculpting is a very iterative process. Usually beginners think that every move that they are doing is the end is unique and is going to be the end of the world. So don't think like this. Even if you, for instance, sculpt, let's say you sculpt a giant squid, you can always go back to a human body or whatever you want by manipulating the geometry. So don't think that what you're sculpting is final. You want to move around, to change things, to update forms, and basically to iterate until it looks the way you want, or the way the human body looks right for you. So as you can see, I've added the nasal bone, or at least I've defined it a bit more. It's wider on the top here, and I'm going to add the bowl of the nose a bit more. I'm going to bring back the eyes a bit more to the center of the head, and I'm going to define a bit more the eyebrows there. And don't worry, we're going to go back there. One thing that is really important to do is to look underneath your model, to have a warm eye view, I will say, to see if the planes are correct. Same thing from the top. You don't want your head to look like this, for instance. You want your head to be in a trapezius shape. As you can see, it's tapering toward the front, and those things are things that you will be able to spot only by moving your camera around. So I'm going to drop down the ear a bit, because it's going to lay down from the nose, from the bottom of the nose to the top of the eyebrows. So I'm going to change that a bit, and I'm going to push them inside the ear a bit more, inside the head a bit more. So now I'm going to work on another section. As you will see, I'm going to jump around. This is really important. You want the whole thing to be homogeneous. So I'm going to shape the pectoral muscles a bit. The pectoral muscles are inserting in many different bones. The first one being the sternum. Here we have something called the suprasternal notch, which is the end of the sternum. And basically from here starts the arc of the rib cage. And the muscle fibers are going toward the sternum inside, and then we have the pectoral muscles that will connect inside the humerus bone, which is not a funny bone, by the way, but let me show you on the human atlas there. As you can see, it's inserting in the sternum, and it's inserting in the humerus bone. But as you can see, it flips, meaning that the top part that connects to the clavicle is going to be connected to the bottom of the insertion point, and the lower part here is going to be inserted in the upper part, meaning you have a wrapping form here. Why that? Just because when you lift your arm, you want the muscle to unstretch, basically unfold. So, things to note. But here, of course, we don't see the skeleton, so we cannot do this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the Crease Brush, and I'm just going to add an indent. And I'm making sure, absolutely sure, that my pectoral muscle goes inside the biceps, and I'm going to cut my biceps like this to just make the bicep go inside the muscles. And I can also cut right here my deltoid, so the muscle of the arm, and as you can see, my pectoral is going to split toward the clavicle like this. So right now it's not looking great. Of course, I don't care. It's not the point right now. The point is to make something that will lead me to something that looks great. So you can see the indent here is too much wide, so I can grab my grab brush and I can move it, my move brush, and I can move it back, and things will adjust with time. Don't worry. So I'm going to smooth a bit here using Shift. And now I'm going to press Shift-C to grab my Crease Brush, and I'm going to, so let's define some more muscles. Here I'm going to divide the bicep from the arm. So I'm just going to add a crease here. And the bicep is not a round muscle. Like a lot of people think it's very round. It's like something like something. Oh, I cannot draw here. Oh, sad. So many people think, I'm going to add a UV image here. A lot of people think that the bicep is something like this. This will only happen with very muscular people, but usually, and that flexes the arm, but usually it's not like this. Usually it's more like it's more flat. It's more like a tube shape, like this, with the deltoid that is like a droplet of water on top. Here you have the tricep, and then you have the radius muscle. They are called the brachioradial muscle, but I know that there are other names for it. But as you can see, the biceps basically is a tube. Okay, so let's follow this idea, sorry. And I'm going to make just a small indent at the end, like this, to make it more box-like. Okay, but you can see that, and this is really important especially for beginners, that as I'm sculpting, the forms looks weird, always. It's only when all the muscles are coming together that the forms looks plausible. Okay, so you define a muscle, but on top of it we will add some other muscles. Okay, so here I'm going to cut to add small indication of the sternocleidomastoid muscle, which are the muscle that connects behind the ear and connects to the clavicle. If I'm adding some clay using the clay strip brush by pressing Alt-C, it's the shortcut that I've added, you can see that I can even more emphasize them, and I can also add the second part of the sternocleidomastoid muscle that will split from there. As you can see, I'm splitting there and I'm connecting to like the clavicle too. And this is going to be even more defined later when we will have more geometry to work with. So going back to the crease brush, I'm going to define maybe the mouth. So using crease, let's add a simple line for now. And one thing to note, and that is really important, is that when modeling the mouth or sculpting the mouth, you want it to follow a cylindrical shape like this, because it's following the tooth, sorry. And I'm going then to sculpt them. I don't want to make it smile, to make him smile, sorry. I want to make him having a neutral expression, so that's what I'm targeting right now. And as you can see, the crease brush is dividing the lips in two parts. That's pretty cool. You only using one stroke. And as you can see, using the grab brush, I've pinched a bit the corners of the mouth. And also what I've done is I've pushed the corner a bit more toward the middle section, because the mouth was too large. Usually you can drop a line from the center of the eye to the corner of the mouth. And the jawline from the front, the peak of the jawline here is going to lie close to the center of the mouth. So it's not perfect right now, but it's going to work better later once we will define a bit more the shapes. So now you can see here the structure of the skull is not that much defined. So what we are going to do is we are going to use the scrape brush using Alt F, and I'm lowering the brush, and I'm going to define the plane, the side plane of the skull by just adding, scraping here. And I'm going also from this view to add another plane here, and this is going to divide the skull in 2 sections right now. But as you can see, it's not looking great again because we are lacking some muscle informations, especially the nasolabial fold. I think it's called like this in English. Okay, so maybe we can add it right now. Let's do it really quickly. I'm going to use the clay strip brush, and I'm going from the nose, from the top of the wings of the nose, I'm going to add a bit of geometry, and I'm going to follow the mouse. Don't add too much of geometry, as it will look weird. And you go from the nose, you follow the lips, the corner of the lips, and then you go back to the lower lip, sorry. Okay, but don't over exaggerate this. And then I'm going to dig under the lower lip, and I'm going to add back the chin. Okay, we are going to go back to that later. I can also re-add a bit the jawline, the mass of the jawline, and I can feel a bit more the geometry right there, and I can smooth a bit. Okay. Again, we are going to go back to that later. I'm going to add some masses here for the top lip, and from the bottom, I'm going to reshape the mouth a bit better, like this. So we've been too focused to the head, so let's move to another part. We're going to move there to the torso. So what we are going to add is we are going to add a crease there to mark the rib cage, like this, more below. And this is going to help me defining muscles that are called the serratus muscles, and they are muscles that connects to the rib cage. So let me show you this one, because it's really interesting to see. Those are those muscles that usually you see well defined on superheroes, and they are just wrapping around the rib cage and around the different how do you call that, the different bones of the rib cage, I would say. And you can see them, some of them there. Okay, so we are going to just indicate this. You can see it's very subtle, like this. Basically, it's following the rib cage, nothing more. And using the clay strip, I can add them back more. We don't have that much geometry to do that, to do that better for now. So I'm going to push them back a bit, smooth everything, and for now it's going to do the job. So from the back, what I'm going to do is I'm going to smooth a bit my geometry, and from the back, what we are going to do is to define the trapezius muscle, which is the most important and most prominent muscle from the back, I would say. So in order to define this muscle, it's starting from the neck, like this. It's going to wrap around the front of the body here. It's going to connect to the clavicle. And then from the back, it's going to follow the scapula right here. And then it's going to finish like this toward like a triangular shape. And I'm going then to push back this part so it's more, I will say, more subtle. So I'm going to smooth everything back. I'm going to push back this point right now. Okay. So now we are going to, so usually this point is the lower part of the rib cage. Okay. So now I'm going to define more a group that so first what I'm going to do is I'm going to define the deltoid muscle here. So I'm just going to put back the deltoid muscle and attach it to the scapula. So the scapula is again lying on the rib cage and is like a triangular shape like this. If I emphasize it more like this, and it's a bone that is slightly tilted from the top, and what it ends, I think it ends in the middle of the rib cage. So let's say like this, and it makes the arm. It supports the arm from the back. Basically using the deltoid muscle that connects to it a bit more from there, I would say. So I'm going to divide the deltoid there, and the other group of muscle that will lie into the scapula is made of 3 muscles, but we are only going to split it in 2, and it's basically this big shape and a lower shape like this. So I really encourage you to look at the anatomy. So let me show you that by using the atlas here. As you can see, you have this muscle and those 2 muscles together, that are that we're going to group together. Okay, and the deltoid that is going to lie on top. And this is the trapezius muscle that lies close to the bottom of the rib cage. It depends, of course, of the anatomy that you're sculpting. Sorry. So here, what I'm doing is I'm refining the shapes, and I'm making the trapezius, the tricep muscle go below everything. So as you can see, I'm pushing back here this line, so the trapezius muscle goes below everything. Okay, and the deltoid muscle should go on top of everything. So I'm going to use clay strip to add some mass on top of it, and I'm going to smooth everything out because I don't want my back to look that muscular for now. And I'm going to put the trapezius muscle on top of everything from the inside. And I'm going to follow the direction of the trapezius using my brush. You can see like this. And I'm going to smooth everything, and you can see that it starts to look more realistic right now, at least this section. We are going to emphasize more the shapes when we will have more geometry again. Okay, so the deltoid is not a round shape like this. A lot of beginners are making these mistakes, and it took me a while to counter this fact. It's actually very flat. You have a curve that is flat on the top. It's more like, I will say, like a cone shape. So let me show you. I'm going to add a cone shape like this. It's more like this, with the lower part like this, than a sphere or than a round shape. Okay, so let's go back to the sculpting section, and I'm going from the top to make the indentation using the clay the Crease Brush go meet the side of the bicep. Okay, so it's like a water droplet, basically, like this, and it's covering everything. And moreover, it's going also to join the clavicular, the top part of the clavicle, clavicle, and it's going to join around what we call the acromion process, which is a small part that covers here, that covers the humerus muscle, the funny bone. So let me add back the clavicle, define it more with a broader brush, and then let's smooth around like this. Okay. So it's starting to look more more defined. So now we are going to add what we call the external oblique, which is a muscle that is lying there. So it's this big part. I'm going to divide it with the pectorals, and I'm going to cut the pectorals a bit like this, a bit more straight and from the middle section, and it's going from the top toward the abdominal section, sorry, and it's going to go right there to the bottom of the pelvis. So basically the goal of this is to twist your body from side to side. Okay, and you can see this muscle going back to what I call the butterfly at the end, or the triangle, and the triangle is the indentation that you have here, forming two dimples, and you can connect the dimples like this, and it's basically defining the pelvis shape from the back, and from there you can see that we can see the oblique, basically, and I can create two tubes in the middle like this that will push the skin. You can see them, so like two cylinders here, and on top of everything we will have a very wide muscle. So when I say on top of everything, it's like I'm cutting that way, but we will have a very wide muscle called the I don't remember the name, sorry. Thanks to my human atlas, I will give you the name. It's it's in French, the latissimus dorsi in Latin. Let's call it in Latin. But basically the idea is that it's a wide, it's like a wide plastic paper on top of your back, but below the trapezius muscle that will end more there, and it's going on top of the muscles that we've defined previously, that were close to there, and I'm going to cut the indent there. As you can see, we don't have that much geometry, but it's basically a wide triangle with the vertex there. I'm going to push that back with the clay strip brush, and it's going from the back toward the front, and that is the part that we see from the front that is popping out here. It's hard to see there, but usually I'm pretty sure you've seen that already on your own body or on a very muscular person, like very wide armpit. The shape is made principally because of this muscle. Okay, latissimus dorsi. So okay, now we can define some other parts. We are going to define the tricep. So usually the tricep is divided in two, even if it's three muscles. I'm going to use the Crease Brush, and I'm going to divide the tricep like this. As you can see, 1, 2, and there is a third part that we're maybe going to add later once we have more muscle geometry. But here is basically the elbow, and I'm going to maybe I'm going to shift it a bit. I'm going to shift it toward there, because the elbow is going to be more located there due to the position of the arm. So I'm going to again to split the triceps in two, and I'm going to make a round arch there. So I've used another brush, sorry. I'm going to cancel that, and I'm going to make it better. So yes, it's basically a round arch like this, and the triceps is going to lie around, the two parts of the triceps are going to lie around there. So I'm going to, using clay strip, define those parts a bit better. And we can define the bone that will go straight from the elbow there to the pinky finger, okay, like this. And this is going to help us divide the front and the top part of the arm. So I can even dig near them, and you can see that we have this bone that will split the arm in two sections. The forearm is pretty complex for beginners, but if you remember this quick tip, that from the side of the hand toward the elbow, you basically draw a straight line, which is the bone, and then it will help you divide the different muscles from the forearm that you will be able to group way better than without this indication. Okay, so I'm going to make the tendon of the triceps a bit more stretched, and I'm going to push the triceps a bit more. We can always push it back later if we want. Okay, now we are going to go to work on the legs. So the legs are also pretty complex, but don't worry, we're going to deal with it. So we are going to divide the form in many shapes. So the first thing I like to do is usually define a circle here, or a half circle here, that will create a ligament that connects there. And this helps me on the figure to connect a very important muscle called the sartorius muscle. And the sartorius muscle is going to go sideways like this, and is going to follow the quads underneath the knee like this. And even, I would say, even further down there. It's going to follow the quads, going there. Maybe I can push it back more inside. And this is going to be the first key placement for the upper leg. Okay, so here we have, of course, the quads. Then what I like to do is to define the knee and the first muscle of the quad here. And I define the knee like this, using a small V shape, inverted V shape. And then I have the adductor there, and I'm going to smooth here the adductor, and I'm going to push back the quad, the first muscle of the quad there. As you can see, it's like a giant droplet. And I'm going to smooth everything out so it works better. So the quads will be located here in the front part of the leg. And one thing to remember is that it creates side angle from the lower point of the quads to the higher point of the quads. And the knee basically will be indented a bit sideways like this, and I'm going to add a mass for the knee, and I'm going to cut around like this. And as you can see, it's a bit sideways. Why? Because simply inside the great trochanter, which is the bone that connects the leg to the pelvis, starts, and it goes inside. Okay, and then from the knee we have another bone that will go, so the tibia, that will go sideways like this. Okay, so if we look from the front, we can start to see the shapes. It's wider on the top, this bone, and it's very visible, so that's why it's not a muscle, but I'm sculpting it with a very important brush strokes. But as you can see here, it starts from there, and I'm going using the crease brush. I'm going to separate it, and it's going to the side. It's bending to the side. Okay, and from the side view, the knee is of course going to create a bump. So I can, from the bottom view, I can push it a bit, and underneath the knee we have another bump. So it's like having two bumps in this section. And remember that the knee is a section that that is going to connect the upper and the lower leg, of course, but it's not a section that is directly connecting the top and the top part and the lower part of the leg. It's there is a gap there, as you can see it here. We have here we have a small gap, and then it's pushing back. And same thing here, we have the higher point here and the lower point here. You can see it creates an angle. Same thing here, it creates an angle, and here the angle is going to be reversed for the malleolus, which is the small extrusion that we have there. That is in fact the tibia bone created by the tibia there. So it's really important to make the tibia go sideways, inward, sorry. And here we have another bone from the side that is going to create the second one there. And we are going to see that a bit later once we have more geometry. Okay. So from the side of the leg, so we have a muscle that that will be really important, which is going to wrap, I would say, the vast majority of the leg around what we call the great trochanter. So the great trochanter is going to be a small dot that is going to be visible, I will say here approximately. So let's add a dot, and then around this we will have the different muscles of the leg that will follow the shape of the iliac crest. And the iliac crest is the part of the pelvis here. And as you can see, I've created the first muscle here that I'm going to push back using clay strip, if I can. Yes. And then we have the biggest muscle of the leg, of the body, I think even, which is going to be the butt, basically, no? And that is going to follow again the pelvis shape from the back. It's going to, you can see the line that I'm drawing there is representing the pelvis, the iliac crest, and you can see that it's higher from the back and lower from the front. Okay. Even though it's too much defined here, don't worry about it right now. Just place your landmark, and it will be a good later when you will refine everything. So from the butt side, you can see that it's going to go sideways again like this, and it's going to wrap around the leg like this, and this muscle is going to be really important. Let me just take a look at one of my reference. Yes, it's going to be at approximately there, and you can see that it's more like a butterfly shape, and here it's too much wide, I will say, for a male here. So I'm going to push it back more inside. For a female it's going to be different, but for the male anatomy we are going to make it more like a butterfly shape. And it's, again, don't make it too spherical, make it more wrapping around the leg. Okay, everything is logical in the human body. Like, you don't have the luxury of making a shape that won't fit in the skeleton. So right now it's not that much defined, but because just we don't have that much geometry, but it's going to work well later, and this is going to prepare the work for later. Okay, so now we have other muscles from the side. So one really important muscle is the one that is connecting there, here. Then we have the butt muscle, and then following the great trochanter we have the a very wide muscle that is going to wrap the side of the leg, and that is going to split the leg in two, like the tricep and the bicep, and is going to attach from there. And I'm going to split it like this for now. And I don't have that much geometry to make it more precise, but in the end it's going to be a bit wider than what I'm doing. So I'm just adding more mass to remember that. And I'm going to shape the great trochanter a bit more, like this, like a circle, like a bump basically. And I'm going to smooth everything out a bit more. And one thing that I really want to make clear is that the butt here is going to go underneath this muscle. So what I can do is I can push back the side of the leg a bit, and I'm going to make the volume of the butt a bit more prominent here, and I'm going to smooth everything out. And don't worry, we're going to go back on this section later. It's probably the geometry underneath that is not following exactly the shape of the anatomy. Okay, so now one other thing that we have from the back is what we call the hamstrings, and they're basically the equivalent of the bicep. So we can divide them there, and I'm going to create an arch there that is going to ease the transition from the muscle of the back leg, basically the back of the upper leg, and those muscles are separating here in two. And it's hard to do, but because of the geometry below. But here it's very, you should very make it going underneath the butt. Okay, so this muscle and this muscles are together, are considered to be together, and they are the equivalent of the biceps, as I said. And here we will have a muscle that goes like this, and this muscle is going to be the extension of the quads that will pop out from the other side. So imagine that you have a big muscle like this, and those are the quads that we see from the side. But of course, I've exaggerated everything there, so you can see that it's very pinched, and I don't want that, of course. So I'm going to smooth everything out, and I'm going to make the muscle blends a bit better. Okay. So let's push the muscle and make them a bit more tensed. And we have a small muscle here, but usually we don't see it, so I can blend it with the hamstrings. That should be a bit less. That should be less visible from the back, and from the outside, sorry, and should be a bit more visible from the inside, like this. Going to push back the muscle of the butt inside, and here I'm going to smooth everything out. Okay, so don't worry, it's going to be again better as we sculpt the figure. But again, one thing to remember is this. Here it's creating this shape. Okay, it's cutting the shape like this, not the other way around. It's wrapping around. The butt is wrapping around the front, the side part, to go to the front and to create a big mass for the side of the leg. Okay. So, one thing that is usually hard to manage is this small muscle that creates from the side view an indentation. So I'm going to add it more, and using the move brush, I'm going to push it back a bit and make it more visible like this. It's going to create, like, the first bump is from the oblique, external obliques. Then we have the second bump here. I don't remember the name of this bone. And then you have a small bump here, which will be near the great trochanter. That is maybe a bit too far. I'm going to push it back. And then we have the rest of the leg. Okay. Okay, let's add more volume to those legs. From here too. So from the back, we have the hamstrings there that are a bit more straight than what I've done. And then here, we have again another muscle that we can split from there. And this will help create what I think of the triceps of the tricep of the leg. And you can see it. You can see it basically merges with the back of the knee there, and they are called the gastrocnemius muscles, and they are joining together to the Achilles tendon, and they are making a very wide tendon like this, and maybe they are a bit high, so I'm going to push them back. And as you can see here, it's very tensed because it's not muscle, it's a tendon. So you can from the side make it a bit more straight. And same idea with your curves. Watch, this point is lower than this one, like this one is lower than this one. So when you go there, your foot is going to be a bit cut toward your back like this. You can see I've created a small curve, and we are going to maybe shape the foot a bit better. I'm not going to bother with the toes and things like this in this today, I think. We'll see. But one thing that I can do is I can use the inflate brush by pressing I to, as its name suggests, inflate the feet. And the feet are pretty long there. I'm going to shorten them. And one thing to remember with the feet is to add a mass on the top there. And I'm going to remove a bit of geometry there and to make them and not to make them flat. As you can see, it's more realistic when you have a bump, a mass on top like this. And here I'm going, whoa, I'm going to smooth here because it was poking through the geometry. But here I'm going to use the scrape brush to remove the flatness of the foot. And as you can see, I'm creating small angles. And here I'm going to emphasize the arch of the foot. And here I'm going to flat a bit. I really like scrape because it's like, for me, it's like smoothing the shapes. I'm using it as a smooth brush, I would say, in many cases, and to define a bit better the flow of the shapes. So here you can make it, can use it to make the shape a bit more defined and the planes a bit more defined. The arch is a bit high, so I'm going to push it back. And generally speaking, the foot is a bit wide, so I'm going to make it a bit more realistic with less wide proportions. Sorry. There are different kinds of feet. Sorry. So for now I won't bother. I will make a very generic foot, and I'm just going to use the crease brush to cut here the mass that I've talked about. It's going to divide the foot in two parts, and don't worry, we're going to go back later to the foot once we have more geometry. But it's really important to make, of course, the feet right, because they are the what supports the whole body. So. Okay, so I think we are making good progress here. We are going to touch a bit the ends and the lower arm. So first I'm going to shape a bit the anatomy of the lower arm like this. So usually the higher point is there. Why? Because you will see we have here a muscle that I'm going to add using the crease brush. So the first muscle is a small one lying near the bicep and below the vertex, the point of the deltoid muscle, sorry. And then we have here, we'll have a giant muscle called the brachioradialis. Why radialis? Because it's creating a radiation. It's rotating, if you want, and it's going to cut like this very frankly. I will say first. I'm going to cut it very frankly here, and it's going to divide the tricep and to divide the triceps here and the the muscle that interconnects there. So first, yeah, I think that I'm going to move the elbow a bit higher, and the tricep, therefore the triceps a bit higher like this. It's going to be more realistic. And so the tricep is going to get thinner there. So you can see that this is the tricep, and the tricep is going to connect more like this, and this big opening is the good place to cut the brachioradial muscle down toward the thumb. So the idea is that this big droplet that we're going to cut is going to split the arm like this. I will say even more straight here, but once you have the hand rotated down the ground, it's going to create even more rotation. And then from the front here we can split this muscle again in two parts, and this is going to divide what we call the flexors and the extensor. So now I've destructed everything, all my shapes, but I can bring them back and I can sculpt them back. But the idea is that you see that this muscle attaches higher. It attaches to the upper part of the arm and creates a nice shape by dividing the forearm in two. And again, behind we have again the separator, the joint that the bone that separates the different parts. So for now, just remember that you have this big mass. Here you have also a big mass that will stop usually there. And from the bottom here, we have the end of the tricep here. And we have a small, a very small muscle that you can only see when you raise the arm. And this is called the brachialis. No, it's called the... Oh, I don't remember the name. Sorry. It's a really small muscle, a really big muscle, but it appears really, it's the brachial muscle. Sorry, it's a really small muscle, visible on the surface, but actually it's like having a steak in a layer behind the bicep. But you can represent it like this, and it pokes through a bit near the other side, and we've already defined it here, as you can see. It's this one. Imagine that this is like a steak layered in between the biceps and the tricep. So let me adjust the silhouette of my arm there. You can see the 3 layers there. So now it's more a question of bringing everything together. So I'm going to use the Crease Brush, adding more master. And sometimes it's more important to define the muscles so they look right rather than they look correct, anatomically speaking, I would say. So don't worry about placing every single muscles. You won't be able to do that first because it's like you're not a doctor, we are not doing medical anatomy, and we don't need this to live. But the idea is to transcribe the general forms of the human body in an artistic way. So here I will say the tricep will be, from the back, will be more more going through the shape. So I'm going to push it to scale my grab brush to make big moves and to push it a bit more inside, like this. And as you can see now, it's getting very bumpy. I don't like this. So I'm going to smooth everything out, and this is going to shine a bit better when I'm going to add more geometry. So I'm going to remove the, how can I say that, the bumpy effect by smoothing my geometry a bit, and this is going to make it way more realistic. So here, for the hand, sorry, we have a strap. So first what I'm going to do is I'm going to press Shift B in order to zoom on this section, and now my camera is rotating around this location. This is something that you can do in ZBrush by default, because when you are clicking on ZBrush, it's focusing the point you were clicking on. But here, as you can see, I'm dividing the hand using a small section, and this is a strap that we have that basically is following the wrist, and this strap is what's keeping the different cables of the hand inside the hand. It's really hard to sculpt there because it's too thin, so I'm going to use the move brush. And what I want to do right now is I want to use the best brush of Blender, I would say, which is the pose brush that will help me creating a more natural pose for the end. So sorry, ZBrush guy, you will have to to spend more time doing this using the transpose line tool, but in Blender it's actually pretty great doing this. And I'm not going to change the location of the fingers because I want to sculpt them, and it's going to be easier like this. I'm not going to use fancy mask and things like this right now. I'm just going to sculpt with the minimal tools that I have. I'm not a big fan of fancy tools when sculpting. So yes, I really advise you to just learn few tools and to be very comfortable with them, and know your way around with those few tools. So this is the best way to, in my humble opinion, to sculpt is to be very consistent with the tools you use. So now we are going to, so for the end, yes, we can do simple things such as using the inflate brush. We can make the base of the finger a bit wider, which is the case. Yes, we can, I think the thumb is the most harder thing to do because you're sculpting in a very odd angle. But as you can see, I can sculpt it. It's wider near the nail, unlike every other finger. Sorry, and it's creating a S shape from the side view. But you can see that even here I've made the mistake of making it aligned with the hand, which is not good at all. So I'm going to use the pose brush again, and I'm going to press, I don't remember I'm going to press the, once I have something that looks great, I'm going to press the Control key to rotate the thumb, or to try to rotate the thumb a bit. And this will help me using the scrape brush to define the plane of the thumb. So as you can see, I'm like putting the plane, and now once I've a visual indication of the plane, it's going to be easier for me to define the anatomy of the thumb in the right location. As you can see here, I've created a bump. Why? Because actually when you look at the skeleton of a hand, the thumb starts lower than the other fingers. What we call the metacarp of the thumb. So here using clay, I can put an important mass of the thumb. Whoa, no, sorry. It's not. Once we are going to have more geometry, it's going to be more fine. But as you can see, what I'm creating here, just double checking, is I'm creating a crease first here, and then I'm just adding a small crease here, and I'm going to add a line there. It's going to be the first few things that I'm going to do at this stage. And from the back, we are going later to emphasize the fact that this part is creating a wedge shape here. Same thing here. And we also are going later using the, maybe I can do it with the crease brush, but we are going to add mass for the tendons. And if you look at your own hand and you put your hand like 90 degrees from your finger, if it's possible for you, but you will see that the different tendons are not joining toward the center, the perfect center of the hand. So they are more going toward the side. So I can like imagine a point there. Okay, I can join the tendons to this point. Okay, or to a similar location. Okay, not like this. Okay, and once I've created like very obvious tendons, I can smooth them like this, and it's creating the trick, the illusion of a good hand. No. It's very far from perfect. We have a lot of things to do, fortunately. So you can see that this thumb is going to get crazy. I'm going to work on it now. I'm going to smooth what I've done previously. It was just a visual marker, visual indication for me. And I'm going to add, using the crease brush, a mark here. And I'm going to push it back, and I'm going to do a lot of things like this. You can see flag here. It's going to lower at the end of the nail. We are not going to, I think we are not going to sculpt the nails and things like this. I don't want to make a very long tutorial. I'm known for making long tutorials, but this time I want to make I don't want to spend more than 3 hours or 2 hours to sculpt everything. So. And I don't want to make time lapses. Because I think this is really important that you, if you want to do this kind of stuff, that you see the whole process and the efforts that goes behind them. It's not something that you will be able to do in one day and like follow a tutorial and say, oh look, I'm an anatomy master. It's not my case. It's not even the case of the best anatomy teacher and the best anatomy sculptors. They are constantly learning, but it takes time to create something convincing. So, hence the fact that I want to do the nails, because nails are not the key selling point to anatomy, in my humble opinion. Okay, so. The thumb from the top view is not great because here it's not wide enough. So let me add a bit more mass. And maybe the thumb is a bit too long, so I'm going to shorten it. And maybe it's not inflated enough, so I'm going to inflate, not that much, but I'm going to inflate it a bit. And let's call it okay for now. And of course we are going later to go back on it and like tweak it and do a lot of things. I think I've over exaggerated the plane. I'm going to try to push it more towards this direction. Yes. So I think it's better that way. I hope it's better that way, yes. Okay, let's go back to that later. Once you've spent too much time on on a section, remember to change your mind and like do something else, something really important. Otherwise, you will be frustrated. So I'm going to reshape the biceps so it's more box shape a bit. Like you can see here, it's more angular. And I'm missing something for the arm, to be honest. And I think the whole arm, sorry, is too bumpy, and is also too small. I'm going to make it wider without making my guy another cliche of the of the muscular guy, which I don't want to, even if it's something really interesting for learning anatomy. But I'm going to push back here the muscles of the forearm. When we are in an anatomical position, stand like this, usually the brachioradial muscles are not that twisted. So remember that they are more straight than twisted. And the shape is not going there; it's going from there. The rotation, what we call in drawing the apex of the curve. But what I don't like is the bunny hop. The bunny hop is shluk, shluk, as you can see. It's like there is no transition in the shape. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to merge that and make it less obvious as a bunny hop. Bunny hop, not bunny hope. Sometimes English is really difficult for me. So I'm going to sculpt back this muscle behind, and using Crease Brush I'm going to make the brachial muscle higher, more here. If I'm looking at my reference, yes, it's way higher. And you know what? I'm completely mistaken here. Yeah. Even though I've sculpted this hundreds of times, I've made a mistake here. That's why it was not looking great. At least I've seen that. But the bicep is going there, but the brachial muscle, you remember the layer, the steak layer, is in front of the brachialis. So I'm putting it back there. Now it's starting to make more sense to my eyes. And I'm going to make it such as I'm going to make this correction there. This correction. And this is going to look much more realistic, I think. Let me just add back some masses and like using the move brush. Yes, it's now we have the good layering of muscles. You can see that a simple mistake can lead to a very odd way of visualizing a section of the body. Okay, so of course we have a lot of other things to do. We are going to do some of them soon. I'm going to work a bit on the head, and then I will do a small break, but you won't see that break in the video. But I need to grab a glass of water and just to refresh my mind, and I will really advise you to do that because it will change your life as an artist if you can have a break and stop doing something and coming back to it later. This is something that I was very not comfortable with doing it, but I've learned with the time that doing it gives you better results. So do what I didn't do for a long time. You will do better jobs. So I'm just going to add some fibers in that straight direction for the group of muscle that is below. And I'm just going to cut under here the elbow. So the elbow is still maybe a bit low. So I'm going to push it back up, and I'm going to revisit this whole section anyway. So don't worry, it's going to look better once we will have more geometry and more. We'll spend more time to work on that. So I'm going to work a bit on the head, making the anatomy a bit better and make it more, how can I say, make it more visually interesting. And then we are going to, I'm going to do a break, you're going to do a break, and we are going to pursue with the rest of the tutorial after. It's going to be instant thanks to the technology. Okay, so for the head, what we are going to do is maybe we can start defining the eye a bit. Okay, so Shift B, I'm going to locate my camera near the head, so I can grab basically my head, and now I'm rotating around the head. And okay, so we have the nose that is going to be, I think, enough defined for the geometry that we have. But for the eyes, what I usually do is I'm cutting inside, and then I'm pushing the geometry up and down. And as you can see, it starts to reveal an eye. And if you want, you can of course use geometry, and that's what we are going to do. We are going to use a sphere. But this trick is going to, what I'm doing is really simple once you see it. But when you when you start learning sculpting, you will see a lot of tutorials just putting a sphere and like spending hours trying to define the leads. Here you can, I think it, at least for me, it's easier to just cut a hole, pushing the geometry inside, pushing the geometry below, and then you have your lead defined, and it's at least for me it's going to be easier just defining the leads like this. And we are going to talk a lot about the eyes, I think, because a bad looking eye is going to completely create a lifeless. No, it's going to remove the life of your character. Okay, so for the eyes, what I'm doing usually is I'm thinking of an angle that goes like this. The lower lead, the lower corner of the eye, the inner corner of the eye, sorry, is what we call the lacrimal. Oh, I don't remember exactly the name. Sorry, I was making I was showing off like it's the blah blah blah, and I don't remember to be honest. But basically, the idea of this section is that it's where you will have your droplet of water of lacrimal liquid. I don't know the terms in English. Sorry, it's really hard for me. But it's where you basically are going to where basically your cry is going to to go out from, and the shape of an eye is what I'm thinking of when I'm doing the shape of an eye is let me go to the UV editing here, just showing you. Basically, I'm thinking of, so you have the sphere of the eye with the hole inside. Basically, what I'm thinking of is you have a point. Oh, I don't have undos. Okay. So you have a point there. There. This is slightly lower. And then I'm creating I cannot change the... I don't have undos here, it's pretty weird. And then you're going to have this kind of shape. So it's going to be flat on top, like this, rounder on the bottom, and slightly tilted. So what I want you to remember is this angle. If you symbolize it more, you can think of one line, two line, and you connect the things like this, okay? And in the middle you will have your iris that is going to touch, and here touch the borders, the eyelids basically, and you are going to have the crease here, and then on top you have of course the rest of the eyebrows, etc., etc. So this is really important. One other thing that is really important is that from the side view, so this is the worst circle I've ever done, I think. This one is is not that great too. Oh my god. From the side view, you have the cornea here, and here you need to remember that the eyelid has a thickness. Okay. So you will be able to see this angle and this angle. So from the top, of course, you won't see that. If you're looking down, you will see this plane, but if you're looking from the bottom, you will be able to see this. And remember that from the side, the top eyelid is overshooting the lower eyelid. Okay. Small pointers here and there. Okay, so let's go back to the sculpting tab, and we are going to create exactly from a schematic point of view what I've told you. So here it's maybe more round on the bottom, flat on the top, flat on the side here, and now we are going to add a sphere for the eye. And from the side, the top lid is going to overshoot the lower lid. So how can we do that? We just put ourselves in a view that is comfortable to do that move, and same for the bottom, like this. Remember, and this is really important, that the eye is a spherical shape. You want your eyelids to follow that shape. So that's why here I'm carving around the eye, and then I'm smoothing back. This helps me emphasize the fact that the eye is wrapping around a sphere. Okay, so here it's like completely my character is completely drunk, but this is because on top of that, on top of an eye, you have, of course, you have skin folds, and when you are tired, those skin folds are more soft, less tensed, I would say, and then and therefore it's like following more the shape of an eyeball. So remember that, and when you are getting old, it's the same idea. Your muscles are not contracting your skin that much, and gravity is going to pull your skin, etc., etc. We're not going to talk about that in this tutorial, but yeah, there are a lot of things to note when you are making different kind of ages. So let's add the sphere. So I'm going to add one sphere there. I'm going to rotate it. Sorry. And I'm going to do something that I usually like to do that is quick to do. I'm going to select in edit mode this this section. I'm going to press V in order to rip it. And I'm going to press L, and I'm going to invert this section. So Control M on the y-axis, Control M for mirroring, and on the y it's not working. Why it's not working? So if it's not working, I'm going to rotate it like this, like 90 degree on the x-axis, 100 degrees. Sorry, I don't know what I'm doing. Like this, and I'm going to push that back inside, and I'm going to scale that, and I'm going to push it even more like this. And then I'm going to select the inner part. I'm going to extrude it like this, and then I'm going to shade smooth everything, and then I'm going to go in the normal section, auto smooth, and this is going to do it, I think, for now. Okay, so now I'm taking this eye and scaling it like this, and I'm going to add a mirror modifier, and I'm picking the mesh like this, and I'm placing now my eye. You can see that the eye is too big because one eye should fit in the middle here, and this is not the case, so I'm going to push them back a bit like this, and I'm going then from the side view to make them a bit more visible, and then I'm going to adapt using a large brush. I'm going to adapt using a large brush my geometry. So it's not working well here. So it's maybe just the eye is just too big for at least for my liking. So just let me scale it down. Yes, something like this is going to work better, I think. Okay. So now I could adapt my eyeball to my eyelid, sorry, to the rest of the mesh. Don't hesitate to take references for this process. It's really important. And here I'm going to try to push the geometry that is visible from the inside of the eye, pushing it a bit higher, and I'm trying to keep this plane. Remember, the plane of the eye is really important, of the eyelid is really important, because the eyelids have a thickness. Okay, so as you can see, it's getting a bit weird. Why? Because I think we see too much of the eye, of the pupil, sorry, and I think also the eye is not well placed. Let me do that better. I think also the pupil could be a bit larger, so I'm going to select the inner part like this using L, and I'm going to select this loop. On top of that, I'm going to scale a bit this. And you know what? What I'm going to do is I'm going to remove or select this part with the point, so the inside the hole. I'm going to push it back, scale it down a bit, push it back the other way, and I'm going to press Ctrl plus in order to select the outer ring, and I'm going to add two materials, and the second one is going to have in viewport display a dark material, and I'm going to assign that to the eye. And now what I will do is not Control I, but I'm going to select those faces there by double clicking on it, and I'm going to assign the first material, and I'm going to go here and select like okay, let me just undo what I've done. Oh, it's not undoing the color there. So I'm going to, for the sclera, which is the white part of the eye, I'm just going to put a slightly beige part, and here I'm going to add a new material, and I'm going to select a brown color like this. For now it's going to be fine, and I'm going to assign this. It's not this one, it's this one. Whoa. No, it's this one. And I'm going to assign this color to the eye. I think, again, the eye is a bit too wide. So let me adjust that. And now that I'm seeing that, I have a lot of work to do, of course, to make it less creepy. And this is going to take time. Don't overthink right now. You're not at the end of your journey. You have much more time to make it working and to make it realistic. Wow, the eye is really big. And the nose is really small. So I'm going to adjust the head. So I'm going to widen the nose. I'm going to work on the nose a bit later, don't worry. And the mouth. TH is pretty hard for French people. Okay, so one thing that is not so great with my setup is that my lens is really wide. So here you can see that I have a focal length of 50 millimeters. If I'm putting 80, I'm going to be closer than what I want, but I'm going to put 60, something around 60, which is the field of view, which is the lens of the human eye. Sorry. Why I'm placing H everywhere in English, I don't know. And again, my eye is very wide, so I'm going to try to make it less wide. The eye is very frustrating to do at the beginning, but as soon as you got the shape, it's really fun, and it's really you feel better basically. I'm going to use inflate to inflate the lower part, but you're going trust me, you're going to work on the eye probably until the end because this is usually the case, and every artist that I know are always working with the eyes till the end, because it's what we say is that it's the window to the soul. So I'm going to split a bit the eye there, making the shape a bit better, and I'm going to use scrape here to create the shape of the eyebrow. So here we have what we call the keystone. It's like a flat plane that is not that much visible here, and it's hard to do because of the amount of geometry that we don't have. But basically what you need to understand is at this point this is going to wrap inside and wrap then outside. Here you have like a transition point, I would say, that will make the masses, that will invert the masses. So it's hard to explain there because I don't have that much geometry, so I'm going to keep that for later. But basically, for now, imagine that it's a giant tube that is following the arcade. And I'm going to here to dig a bit inside, trying to make the top flatter, the top eyelid flatter. He's a bit mad now, so I'm going to smooth a bit everything. And for the lips, I'm going to, using Control key, I can invert my brush and I can define very hard the lips, and then using smooth, I can push it back. I'm going to press Control here to, not Control, but I'm going to dig a hole there to create the top part of the mouth. Again, I have plenty of tips to give you for the mouth, but we don't have enough geometry right now for seeing them properly, so I will keep them for later. But basically it's making a butterfly shape here. Okay, so make it more happy by changing the corner of the mouth. I'm going to lower everything. The part of the mouth TH part. I'm going to lower it a bit down like this. Okay, and for now it's I will say it's enough for what we want. Let me think about another thing. The nose is really weird right now. I'm going just to cut a bit more here. And the planes of the nose are not defined. So using scrape, sorry, I'm going to trim the bottom here, and I'm going to make the wings of the nose a bit more prominent here. The upper lip is going to be much more in front of the lower lip from the side view, as you can see. So I'm going to push back the lower lip, and I really need to have less space, more space in the bottom of the nose here. So I'm going to put down the mouth. And for now, I'm going to do. For now, I'm going to do something like this, I guess. And this is going to change a lot, so don't worry. Again, I'm going to add the V in the mouth line here. And from the top view, remember that in the mouth, the most time you will spend from a lower or a top angle because of the roundness of it. So this is what you need to remember, at least for now. Okay, I guess that so when I'm speaking like this, it's probably because I'm looking at my references. It's not probably, it's because I'm looking at my references, but you probably understood that already. Just in case I'm saying it to you. I'm going to smooth a bit the arcade because it was too important. And then I'm going to cut the front part of the head like this to push back the cranium and to create the shape of the frontal muscle of the cranium. And here I'm going to cut the temple section, the region of the temple. Here, I'm going to smooth everything out. And I'm going to cut below the zygomatic bone that is going to connect to the ear. And on top of it, it's the temple. And I'm going to smooth everything out again. You can see it's starting to take shape here, and I think that the ear could be a bit pushed inside like this. And I also need to define the muscles of the face way better. For now, I'm going to cut gently here to define the muscles that will overlap here. So I can cut there, and again it will go below, as I've already told you. It's moving up. It's like if I really increase it, it's doing this. It's going back like this. And here we have a small shape that we call the nodus, and it's a small bump. So if I'm exaggerating it, it's something like this, and it's from the side view, it's in front of the lips. So as you can see, it's not the case here. So I'm going to put back the lips, and I'm going to put this part in front of it. So from a side view, we don't see the corner of the lips that much. And this is going to make a nicer shape, S shape. And maybe I can bring the jaw back a bit and the front like this. The eye is still too big for me, so I'm going to wrap it around more. And I'm going to rotate it a bit so it converges a bit inside. Usually we don't have the focus of our eye too much too much toward the edges of the eye, so hence the fact that I'm rotating them on their own pivot point. And I'm going to make here to create a shape that quickly goes back. As you can see, it's like escaping toward the back pretty quickly, and this is going to emphasize the roundness of my character, of the head of my character. And one thing that I can see right away is the shape of the cranium is maybe too squared, so I'm going to emphasize more the mass behind there. I'm going to shorten the neck a bit. We didn't work that much on the neck, so this is something that we will have to do later. And yes, overall I'm pretty happy with the geometry that I have. We didn't work on the ear. This is going to be a big part later. But yes, overall, that's it for now. I'm going to take a break. I really encourage you to do the same. Otherwise, you just continue watching and I will be there. So soon I will take a break. Just tweaking things around. Yes. Don't forget to save too. That's a good idea, I think. Okay, see you soon. See you now. So now I'm back from my break. I hope you had a nice one too. And we're going to continue working on this character. So, for this second part, what I'm going to do is I'm going to work more on the silhouette of my character. I think that we have the legs are getting on the right track, but they are not as best as we can do, I think. So let's work on them. As you can see, I'm going to make the knee a bit larger, and I'm going to emphasize some muscles. So I'm going to take my reference again, and the one muscle that I want to emphasize is the quads, sorry. It's a group of muscle in the end. And I want to make it a bit wider like this. I want to have this point being the lower point on the outer side more visible, and I want to make a more boxy shape for the knee. So we're going to work toward that. And I want to define more the overlaps of my leg anatomy. So for this I'm going to again use my references, the different references that I have on my board, on my, I would say, mood board. And by the way, I'm using PureRef and Pinterest for that. See if you want to do the same with you, if you want to have the same setup. And what I need to do, I think, right now is to the side of the leg is too much visible. So this part is too much visible. So probably I will lower it, and the butt muscle is also very prominent. So one thing that I can do is by pressing Ctrl Alt Shift, I think it's Ctrl Alt Shift, or Alt B, sorry, I will isolate this part, sorry, and now I will be able to work on the silhouette of the leg. So I'm going to flatten a bit the side of the leg, and I'm going to grab some leg references on my side. So again, feel free to take your own references. Maybe it's an écorché, maybe it's a good sculptor that you like, and that makes great shapes, and that you think is worth it as a reference. In this case, I'm going to change a bit the quads like this, push them a bit forward, and make a nice curve, a nicer at least curve like this. And also I'm going to break the silhouette of the knee a bit more. But again, I don't have enough geometry right now for doing that kind of work, so I'm going to wait a bit and do my best at this stage. And I'm going to also bump a bit the side of the front of the leg. Now I'm going to grab my crease brush again, and I'm going to cut again here for the gastrocnemius muscles, and they are going to be near another muscle that I'm going to define right now, and that is going to start from there, and that is going to follow the dynamic of the leg, basically straight down the leg like this. Of course, now it's very exaggerated. I'm going to smooth everything out gently on top. I'm going to correct this, the shape of the gastrocnemius that is too large. Maybe I can emphasize the lower, the apex of this curve lower here, and you can see that from the front it's looking much better right now. Also from the front I can cut the foot here. It's what I like to call the wrench of the foot, because it's like a wrench shape. Okay, and I will need more geometry to do that, so Alt B is going to bring back my view, and I think here I can do a better job by cutting the muscle here of the butt a bit better like this. It's really hard to at this point without that much geometry to cut, but you can see if I define more, it's like this. It's like a donut, if you want, a donut shape, where everything is going to rotate around the great trochanter, which is this, again, this bony protrusion. And usually the butt muscle is divided in two big shapes. You have one that is going like this, and one other that is like flowing down, but we won't bother at this point defining that. Okay, I'm starting to feel that I've spent more time on the back than on the front, so it's time to go back to the front. We are going to define a bit more the abdominal section and to define more the pectoral muscles. So let's start by doing the abdominal muscles. So the abdominal muscles will follow the rib cage. So below the pecs you have one muscle that is going to of course be hidden by the lower pectoral muscles, like this. And then we have the first section, and if you look at diagrams for the pectoral muscles, they are flowing up, and as lower as you get, they are going to straighten. Sorry. So I'm going to cut the abdominals like this, and the last portion is more blended here in the center than the others. Okay, so I'm going to again smudge them, like blend them. For now they are so perfect compared to what it should be. Even like a very muscular person won't have perfect abdominals like this, or in really rare cases. And one thing to note is that we have a belly. So we are going to add it. We are going to, so the external oblique is what we call it's what we call the love handles. Also, we can emphasize them and really think about the gravity that is pushing the mass on this section right there. So you can see here it's like floating, so I don't want this. I want to push them back there. It's lying on top of, and it's not floating like a air balloon. So remember that. But here I'm going to also emphasize the back muscle. I like to call this the cape because it's, I don't know why, but it reminds me of a small cape. Reminds me of a small cape, so. And okay, it's the external obliques are looking much better, and here it's going to be a very hard section because of the geometry that is like very close together, but we are going to try our best for doing that. Okay. So now that we have the abdominal muscles a bit more defined, we can go with the draw brush this time. I'm going to cut the navel, to insert the navel there. And for the navel, I'm going to make it using the grab brush. I'm going to make it more thin, and I'm also going to make it higher, and like I think I need to review a bit my different proportions, because now we are a bit off. Usually the navel is at oh, it's okay. It's at the middle of the. Oh, it's going to be fine. And one thing that I'm going to add to increase in size is probably the leg, but I'm going to do that a bit later. But now I'm going to widen the inner part of the leg, and here I'm going to try to push that leg back a bit. This part is usually hard when sculpting, and that's where you want to cut out the symmetry and usually re-symmetrize after. But for this I won't bother. I will just pursue my journey like this. Okay, so now I will define the quads a bit more. So the quads, even though it's called quads, we only see 3 major muscles. The first one is this one. I think it's called the vastus medialis in Latin. Then we have a tendon here that connects to the knee. Okay, So we are going to define that much more later with more geometry. And then we have the external part of the quads here, and then inside we have a muscle that attaches here that forms a giant shape that is slightly tilted. So I'm going to tilt it. I'm going to make it wider like this. Okay. So now I need to work on the silhouette of my leg. As you can see, it's not looking great anymore. I have a lot of work to do in order to make that fit with the rest of my body, but I will switch reference. I think I'm sorry not showing you my references because I can't basically. I don't have rights to show you that, but there are tons of good ones on internet and on Pinterest, and they are free, and they are going to be far more useful than you think. Again, adding back this part is pretty important, meaning the small section here that wraps around everything. So remember that we have in the anatomy we have different muscles. We have the one that joins that connects around the great trochanter. And we have one that is in front and that is more visible. So we are going to put back the great trochanter that has disappeared a bit, and we are going to redefine the different shapes. So here and here we know that we have one muscle. Okay. So this one is quite important, and is following again it's following the iliac crest here. Maybe it's not wide enough, so I'm going to make it wider like this. And then we have this one, the small one that I was talking about. Previously, that defines a really important shape for the silhouette of the leg. So of course now it's too much, but here with the clay brush I can make it more visible and more defined with the other muscles. Don't worry if you don't understand right now what I'm doing. It's something that you can look at your own references for this, and second, it's something that will be more defined with more geometry. And I think we are going to soon increase the subdivision levels. Okay, so we are going to work now on the pectorals muscles a bit. I'm going to cut again below there. Not that much there, because it won't be that much. It will be more blended here. And I will cut a bit here, because it creates a hole that we all have, even if we're not muscular, here, between the clavicle and the insertion of the deltoid. And then we have the deltoid will split approximately there to... Basically the deltoid is three parts, the pectoral, sorry, is three main parts. You have the clavicular parts, the costal section, and the arms, the costal section. So it's there. It's basically connecting like this, and then you have the sternal section attaching to the sternum. And sometimes you can see the fibers there fighting around and to attach themselves to the sternum. And here I can open also a bit. Okay, the clavicle is too straight here, so I'm going to put back that like you can see here, put back that curve, that bike handle, shape. And also I'm going to shape the pecs a bit better, and I'm going to remove a bit the mass of the deltoid that is a bit wide for me, like this. So now it's more or less a question of feeling and like, is it looking great? We can move around. Do you think it's looking better like this or like this or like this? And remember that the first rule for me of sculpting is it's a very iterative. So it's a very iterative process. So you have nothing is broken until you basically publish your work on the internet and say it's finished. You always have the time to sculpt and to tweak here and there, so until you decide it's finished. So now we are going to work a bit on the head, and then we are going to increase the resolution of our geometry. So going back to the head, I think the eyes are still a bit big. And the nose is maybe a bit wide there, so I'm going to remove it was very large there, so I removed it a bit, and from the top I'm going to make the arcade a bit more prominent. Depends on what you can, on what you want to do at this point, and also the ethnical point of view. That's it depends of the facial features are very different if you're sculpting a Caucasian or Asian or it's very different according to the different people, and you have to understand the anatomy and to learn how much it can affect the forms depending on the origin of the people, and this is very, very rich in terms of details. And for instance, here I'm making the arcade more pushed toward, and this is something that you won't do that much, for instance, for an Asian people, but here I'm going to work a bit on the neck that was very large. I'm going to put the Adam apple out, to project out like this. I'm not that happy with the eyes right now. I think this is going to take a long time, as I already said before. So be patient. Everything will pay off one day or another, or 1 hour and another. Okay. So now I think we're ready to save and to increase the resolution. So I'm going to subdivide once more, and now it's going to be much easier to add more details and to define muscles even better. So I'm going first to smooth everything a bit more. It's going to look much more realistic as we go. Going to lower the back a bit like this. Okay. So now that I have more geometry to work with, what I can do is start working more on the details of the connection of the muscles. So now, as you can see, it's very schematic. You won't see anybody like this in the real life. So now with clay strip, I'm going to make it more organic. So I'm going to here and there add some fibers, and using my brush, I'm going to make it more plausible, basically. So you can see I'm adding a bit of, I'm filling a bit the shape, like if I was adding a piece of skin on top of it. I can add back the serratus muscles that are being cut by the cape behind. You remember the latissimus dorsi, like this. They are cutting the serratus. So I can emphasize that, and I'm going to make them a bit rounder, because remember that they are following the rib cage. So going back to the clay strip, usually the serratus muscles are also being connected to the oblique, like this. You can see the fiber. And you have usually an arrow like this, and they interconnect with the obliques like this. You can see it. I think now you can see what I'm talking about. So here for the pecs, we are going to make a bit more fiber. And we can smooth gently, just by tapping around like this. Usually it's a good idea to go in the direction of the muscle, to sculpt in the direction of the muscle. Or if you want to not do that, basically go across the muscle, it can also feel the form quickly and make a skin shape, a skin idea. Why? Because the skin usually goes perpendicular to where the muscle flexes, which is pretty logical, in fact. So the deltoid shape. So remember that for the deltoid we have, like, it attaches to the scapula, and the scapula, remember, is the triangle shape inside that lies down lies on top, sorry, the rib cage. I can add the steak. Basically it's the small muscle in between the bicep and and the rest of the arm. I will go back to clay strip now, and now it's also a good time to blend a bit the bicep with the rest of the arm, you know? We don't want a bubble man. We want... Now we are in the making of a more realistic or lifelike character. A live character, sorry. It's not enough in terms of geometry, but it's a start. Okay. Here, usually you will have a small muscle connecting that shows, that creates a small bump there. So you can add it near the inside. For now, it's too clean. Like, this is what we are looking for, is like to unclean to remove the 3D aspect and to remove the fact that the muscles are aligned perfectly, and we want to avoid the schematic view, basically. So I'm adding fibers here, putting back the strap, but blending it with the hand. We'll have a lot of work to do on the arm and on the forearm. I hope I won't have to do a second video for that. This is my goal. I'm going to split the triceps toward the inside of the body. Here. You see it starts looking more real because we are adding small imperfections, small defaults and skin defaults and things like this. And this is what is making a character looks real. This and also breaking the symmetry. But we are not at the point where we can afford to do this. We still need our good frame symmetry. So I'm going to add back the muscle that attaches there. So remember, here we have two muscles, but I prefer to group them. I really like the sculpting in Blender. I was and I am still a huge ZBrush user. I started doing some ZBrush maybe 10 years ago or something like this. But the way we sculpt in Blender is much more better than what we had in 2.79, and so I'm really glad they are making that work. It's amazing. Blender anyway is amazing. Oh, sorry, it's not a software tutorial. No more ad. But you should try Blender if you don't know it. Okay, so now what we're going to do is still going through the whole body, because now I've worked mainly on the top part, on the torso. As you can see, for the abdominal muscle, the fibers are going down. They are not going up, sideways. But I can feel a bit the gap in the torso. If you want to make your character even more realistic, just remove a bit the different parts like this. You can see now it's starting to look much more plausible, even though this guy is still muscular. It's much more yeah, it's much more realistic than what we had. And again, doing this kind of work is just a question of time. I'm pretty sure that even at the end of this tutorial, I won't be happy with the result, because I won't have the time to record, or I will say I won't have enough things to say on top of a tutorial without time lapse, and I don't want to make time lapse. So at some point, I'm pretty sure that I will be saying the same things over and over, and that the mesh, the result won't be what I usually do when I'm not speaking, in terms of anatomy studies or anatomy work. But bear in mind that this is only a question of time. And of course, the beginning, what I've shown you since then, it's a question of studying. It's a question of knowing the forms. It's a question of using good references. But now it's more a question of organizing everything that we've done and blending them. It's like when doing in fact a good concept art, for instance. You spend less time on the sketch usually than on the rendering. And here it's what I could consider to rendering, because the whole thing is not, is not that far from a correct anatomy. It's at least it will be plausible. I'm not saying that it's perfect. Of course, it's far from perfect, but at least it's close enough. So now it's a question of organizing the things and like blending them and rendering them, basically. And this takes super time. It takes a lot of time. But it's also fun. It's the fun part of it. You have something that starts to take shape and starts to be alive, and you can be, if you follow this tutorial that long and you followed along with me, or you paused and you follow along with your own mesh, you can be proud of yourself, because I know it's really hard to make the jump of seeing something bad for a long time in front of you, and like fearing the fact that the shapes won't be good enough. But with practice and with I don't know the word in English, but endurance, I don't know the word. In French it's called endurance, meaning that hard work, I will say, but it's not exactly that, but you will get it. The reward is closer to what you think. Was not intended to get towards a motivational speaking speech, but at the end that's what art is for me, at least now. It's just getting the things done and just doing the things. And here we are doing like something that is much more easier, for instance, than doing a very thin character or a very, how can I say, a very realistic characters in terms of closes and things like this. We are only studying the anatomy, and for instance, for me, the doing a female anatomy study is much more complicated because it's more subtle and it's more the forms are more subtle and gentle in terms of silhouette, in terms of muscle, and even persons that are very muscular, it's still subtle compared to a male. So tricep, I told you that we see mainly two shapes, but in fact, as I told you, there is a third shape that is going to the outside, but we don't see it here. But basically, it's more like this if you want. So you have the tricep there, and here you have another shape that is following the tricep like this. But I think we can blend it and make it fade into two groups. I'm going to feel. The cool thing with the clay strip brush is that it's like the clay tubes in ZBrush or clay buildup. It's feeling the shapes. So here from this view, I'm going to adjust the arm. It's really hard to go into views that we're not used to because we don't have that. Usually, we don't have that much reference for this, and it can look very weird to the eye. Here, I'm going to make the bicep, the apex of this curve, much more square here, as you can see. Again, remember that here the brachialis muscle is going in front of the brachioradial muscle. So this part is going behind this part, and this part is the stake. In terms of proportions, usually the pectoral muscle is the end of the deltoid from this side. Okay, so I'm going to have a quick glance on my references. Let me just 1 second to adjust them into PureRef. Again, PureRef is a really great program, free program that helps you organize your references. Okay. So now I want to work more on the head. I'm pretty happy because now on the head it will be easier because of the subdivide. I can add, for instance, the nostrils. Or maybe not. You know what? I'm going to divide one more. I can always go back anyway to the subdivision level. It's just I prefer for I just prefer to work on one level at a time and make the switch of a subdivision level a conscious thing. But here, I think I can do it like this. You know what? The fast navigation is really bothering me, so I'm going to remove it. It's fast navigation here. It's going to be much slower, but it's not going to undo my... It's not undo, but it's not going to trick me in what I'm seeing. So the nostril, the wings are going back inside the nostril. That's something to note. So you can see here I'm making it going inside. And for the nose, I have some good references, I think. Yes, right there. Photographs are always good. But here I'm going just to make them a bit squarish compared to what I have. And of course they are going back there. And they are following the bones of the nose. So here I'm going to add some creases. And here it's wider and it starts to taper much sooner than what I have. So to put back the wide part on the top. And now what I need to do is to make the transition here a bit more pronounced. And I need to make the ball of the nose, which is not there right now. It's not visible enough. So the ball of the nose is, just imagine you have a sphere here that represents this shape. And that's it, basically. So for the lips, so here also I can you know add the start of the nasolabial fold, nasolabial fold, sorry, and it's going down here, but then I can smooth it a lot because I don't want it to be that much pronounced because we are not making someone old. Usually something that we see on older people. And I'm going to, here, using the scrape brush, I'm going to polish my geometry. Like if I were a jewelry maker. I don't know the term in English, but like polishing a gem. So here is the keystone that I was talking about, sort of a trapezius shape. And now we will be able to, and that's pretty cool, we will be able to work on the arcade shape, which is pretty hard to think about. There is a really good book that I will highly recommend you to buy, which is called Anatomy for Sculptors, sorry. And this is something that a book that will give you an incredible amount of advice and tips on the anatomy on the human body. And I've learned tons of things using this book. I have the paper edition, but there is also an ebook edition. And it's really worth it. It's worth the price for real. So I'm going to add this part back. This part is going to be tricky because we don't have the underlying topology of this part, but I'm going to do my best. You can see now that it's harder to smooth, and hence the fact that I didn't want to switch quickly of subdivision level. And now we're more ready to do that. I'm going to take my eyes. I'm going just for a moment to hide the symmetry. a mirror. It's going to help me sculpt inside. And now I can use the draw sharp. It's easier for carving. I'm going to push this geometry far, really far, so we'll be able to only work with the necessary geometry. I can smooth a bit if I want to make it more homogeneous. But you can see that now I have access to a much more logical structure for the eye. Okay, so I'm going to push back the eye a bit, and again I think depends on the angle of my viewport, but I think it's still too big. I should be able to see the other side from a 3/4 point of view. And now I can also use the scrape brush to define the planes a bit better. I'll be careful with the scrape brush not to overdo it. If it's not a stylized if your goal is not to make it stylized. Well, it's good from time to time to put some scrape work here and there. It helps define the shapes a bit better. And what I'm going to do is also add with clay strip here. I'm going to add some skin folds that will go on top of my eye. We'll blend it on the top. And I will try to make it greater than this, of course. Integrate it better. But usually you see skin folds on top of the eye. So now it's far too obvious that it's it's not realistic. But let me try to make it work. So first I'm going to sculpt around the eye here, and I'm going to smooth a bit my surface here. And I'm not very happy with the way my proportions turned out. So I think I put the eye a bit inside, like this. I think it's much better, I think. And also I will, with clay strip, I will start to add a bit of the indication of the muscle under the eyes, and this that follows the contour of the eye. And from there I will also add, with crease, I will add a much more pronounced eye bag. but more toward the inside. And remember that this part is sticking out like this. I will try to blend it, to do my best to blend it better. But like this for now, it's going to do the job, I think. Even though it could be perfect, but it can always be perfect, more perfect than what we have. So it's just a question of time again. But you can see that now it starts to look more okay. The character is more aged, but it looks more real. I think it's aged because of the amount of details that we have under the eyes, and I would say that this is something that we can work with. And for the mouth, we can add more masses here and another mass to the side of the lips, the top lip, and the bottom lips we can add two big masses like this. So with the symmetry, it means that here it's cut and here we have the big masses. When I'm saying mass, is like volumes basically, is it's like this one. This is a 1, 2, and then we have one here and two small there in terms of volume. Okay. So one thing that I can do in order to make the mouth more interesting is I can push. If I can try to push the line more inside and make the top lip roll over the other one, it's going to be better. And the chin, as you can see, is a bit undefined. So I'm going to make it more defined like this. Can cut a lot under the mouth, but here it's going to be smooth always. Unless you have a very aged person. For now it's going to, like this, it's going to work, I think. Okay. So I'm going to select the trim brush now. I'm going to trim a bit this part, and then I'm going to add some planes here and there. And for the ear, what I want to do is I completely forgot to work on the ear, but what I want to do is to cut here, and I want to create what we call the Y of the ear. So the ear, you have a big Y shape like this that comes there. So you can see it's a tilted Y that protrudes out. Then here you have like a cartilage piece right there that blends on the bottom but not on the top. And the Y is following the border of what we call the helix, with an H, helix, which is basically it's the border of the ear, and it goes inside, so it goes out and then inside the ear like this. And here I'm going to carve a hole and here we have a small protection for the ear, and with the grab brush I can work my way around my geometry here. That is not perfect, of course. No. And one important thing with the ear is to work the back. To work the back. So before moving on, I will just carve the hole using a dual sharp brush. So the hole is going to the left from this point of view. It's not going directly into your into your brain. It's going. You have a small corridor in this direction. And here I can feel with skin and blend it, and here I can use the inflate brush for the lobe of the ear, and I can use the crease brush to make like skin crease like this. And in this case it's probably better if it goes more toward the inside here. So I'm going to, because it's protecting the inner part of the ear. The helix is going over everything anyway, and it should be much smaller here. So that's what I'm trying to do. So this is going to do the job, I think, for now. And here on the back we'll have to carve. This part is always hard to do, I think. The only good way I think I found for making this is like using a mask. So you can use the mask brush. You can mask here this whole section. And you can, by pressing A, you can smooth the mask, and you can invert it. And using the grab brush, you can try to put the hole inside. It's important to follow the shape of the back of the ear. And once you've done this, of course, your skull is not going to adapt correctly. So I'm going to clear my mask like this. And now using the trim brush is a perfect candidate for introducing the skull back. And I can also adjust with my grab brush everything. And this is where I need to smooth a lot, and using the crease brush I can also separate things a bit better. The crease brush is also going to pinch, so it's going to bring back the geometry together, which is pretty cool. So you can clearly see that here I have too much geometry, because when I'm smoothing, things are not getting smoother as much as I would want. So here I'm going to define the top of the trapezius muscle. So usually I don't work that much the back of the ear. Why? Just because usually my characters have hairs. But in this case, I want to cut. I want to make it good for you. So I'm going to work again on this. So from the bottom I can push it, As you can see, it's smaller than what we think. It's like tapering toward the skull. And after that, you can, using the inflate brush, you can add a bit of thickness to the helix from the back without breaking the front. So just take a look at what you're doing, of course. And here we are going to carve to add a bit of geometry like this, and it's going to it's starting to resemble the shape from the back. But don't spend your lifetime on this, because it does not worth it, to my humble opinion, unless you are doing a close shot of the ear. So yes, anyway, something like this for now, and putting back some skull master. And smoothing everything out. I think something like this is going to be, for us, pretty fine. So now I'm going to add back some sternocleidomastoid muscle and make them much more tensed. And here you can see that they are splitting toward the clavicle. And here I can make my neck much more realistic by going across the skin like this, and by smoothing everything out. And it starts raining a lot. I hope you don't you cannot hear that through the microphone. If it's too loud, I'm probably going to stop and make another break, which will be, I think, welcome. And I'm going to push back the Adam apple like this. It's like a triangle shape, like. And maybe my neck is too wide, so I don't want to make it that much wide. My jaw is too squared, so I'm going to work on that a bit too. And this mass could be a bit pushed backward like this. Okay, it's starting to take shape. Maybe I can work more on the chin, making it more making the volume a bit more pronounced on the side, so it breaks the shape from the 3/4 view. 3/4 is usually the view that I'm relying on, because it's the most interesting, I would say, view for spotting the skull anatomy mistakes on the head. So here you can see that I'm using the trim. I will refine the zygomatic part and the cheek part, and the cheeks are maybe too low, so I'm going to push them a bit, and now it's starting to look much better than what we had before. I think I've made my nostrils too wide, so I'm lowering them a bit, and I'm going also to make my nose a bit more squarish. And I know that here the nose splits in two, and on some people you can see that even, you can see that it's very pronounced, but I don't want to make it pronounced, but I'm going to split it a bit like this. And this is going to add something to my character. Okay. So we are getting there. Don't worry, we're getting there. It's almost 2 hours or maybe more. I don't know. But we have still, of course, a lot of things to tweak. So I'm going to go on the knee now, adding some skin folds. And I'm going to re-emphasize the importance of the sartorius muscle, that is, along with the quads here, defining the silhouette of the inner leg. You can see here, we can see it here, so I'm putting it back and pushing it back. You can see it starts to look much better. I'm now going to rework on the tibia. And on the other side we have the fibula that we can remark a bit. Using the strip brush, I'm going to add weight to this. I'm going to try to add weight to this muscle here. And again, I'm going to cut it. Like this. It's looking better, I think. Okay, so those muscles that we didn't talk about here are really hard to obtain in this pose because we are in symmetry mode. So, but what you should know is that the fibers are going that way. So I'm going to try my best to place them. Maybe with crease it's going to be easier. This is where layers in ZBrush are shining, and also reseam master. Oh, it's maybe not, no, it's not called master, just reseam, smart reseam, sorry. And one thing that sometimes could help is to use the pinch brush. As you can see, it's going to with a very large brush, pinch. It's bringing the geometry together, but it's also deforming a lot of things that I don't want. So be careful with this technique. But what I want from a silhouette standpoint is to, here I want to cut, make a plane change with this geometry inside. And this geometry is going to go that way. Yeah, it's really hard there. What I will do is I will save everything, and I will first I will put my level viewport to the maximum because I want to see my whole sculpt. But I'm going to say apply base, and what this function is going to do, it's going to apply to my base geometry the modification that we have done. And it's strange because it's pretty well defined here, so I don't want to make it more obvious in the low level geometry. So let's stay with that. Let's just push the quads a bit more. From the side, it's not good at all. Some the shapes are not well defined. I'm going to make my forms much more logical, making the hamstring more straight. Maybe I can push the hamstrings a bit here on the back. Sorry for a big noise that happened in my building. And here it's too stretched from the back, so I'm going to widen here the things, and I'm going also to add a bit of skin folds there. It's going to be much more logical, and maybe it's really weird because I was projecting to the other side, and for me was looking quite weird. But here I can blend my muscle together like this. And I need to smooth a lot. I don't want my muscles to be like a plastic bag, you know. And usually when you have a crease in between two muscles, in some situations, here for instance, you can add some skin folds. For instance, here I know that I have a much more pronounced skin fold, even though it's a hole in fact, but it's creating a squeeze of skin that I can emphasize like this. So I'm going to push that a bit more inside, and using the crease tool I can push inside. So we didn't talk about some muscles that are so subtle that I didn't bother at the time to place them, but I'm now going to do to place them. So the gastrocnemius muscles are those ones, and inside they are following the tibia shape like this and coming back again. So you see the tibia is pretty huge, in this case so I can maybe make it a bit less huge. And here we have a muscle that will go in between the tibia and the gastrocnemius muscles here. And following the rest here, we have some other muscles, but it's more tendinous shapes, and I don't want to make that too obvious, so I'm going to smooth there. Usually, it's not something that you will see a lot on even on a muscular person. So I'm going to feel that with clay strip, but it's going to feel, so it's clay feel, okay. And here I'm going to make that tendon much more visible. And here the tendon is much smaller. It's going to an end here. It's coming to an end there, and moving the foot a bit forward, and maybe I can shorten the leg a bit. Yeah. So from there we have all the muscles that I can cut that are following the straight down to the leg, that are following the shape of the leg. Can make the tibia a bit wider. Usually the tibia is also very how can I say, very sharp in the front. Oops, I wanted to use the Crease Brush. Okay, so now using the scrape brush, sorry, I'm going to create a plane here underneath the gastrocnemius muscles. I think it's going to work pretty fine like this. Pushing them back then. And what's not well defined here is the fact that they're disconnected like this, and from this side at least I think it's better to emphasize this part. Not that much from the back, I think, but here we can again take advantage to clay strip to fill the gap and make it more organic. Wow. This was not intended. Wow. Is this too thin, really? Wow, it's really thin there. This is not great. I'm going to widen the foot, the Achilles tendon, and maybe I can work on the foot right now. And we also have to work on the hands. But before, let's make again the leg maybe a bit larger. A bit wider, sorry. And for the foot, I don't have that much references, so I'm going to either find some, either making it from memory. I have one, but it's not really great, so I'm going to make adjustments from memory and a bit from this reference. It's much easier now to create the wrench shape here. And we also have there a strip like we have in the end. That will wrap the different tendons of the toes. And here it's clearly a mess here. So let's sculpt that. Let's smooth that. It's important to remember that this is the tibia. So you don't want to lose the connection. And from the front, I would like to see more of the toes. I don't think I'm going to sculpt the toes, to be honest with you. Maybe I can just here. So I'm going to press Alt B. No, sorry, Shift B. Maybe here I may try to cut the big toe and to see what if it's doing something interesting. Here I have the connection of the toes. Or maybe I can try 1, 2, 3, and the fourth. Here, the little one is going to be around there. Okay, change my mind. I'm going to sculpt the toes. So sculpting toes is a bit harder than what you think. You will than what we can think. Sorry. you have to think that the toes are. I don't know if I don't know if I will carve the toes. Let me think. Let me try. If I'm not happy, I can always come back. It's a question of finding the right proportions and usually they are gradiating, like we have here they are flat, but here they are going up, like a bit like clothes. Maybe I can add play strip. Yeah. I don't know if it was a good idea, to be honest with you. I don't have the perfect geometry underlying the sculpt to do that. Oh no. I'm going to go back to smooth a lot and go back. Maybe I can go back to other layers and try to smooth underneath and go back to the fourth layer. And resculpt everything. Should have saved. I prefer to have a blocking for now, and I know it's something that I've done before in like sculpting toes on a lot of studies, but it takes too much time and with a bad topology, and I don't think it. I think it's better if we don't spend the time doing this and we spend time doing other things that are much more, to my humble opinion, much more valuable, such as defining the big mass of the feet. So you have one there, one there. Here it's pretty carved. And here you have a fat pad. No! I think I will. I think it's time to go in the tool options there and to find where the the back face culling is. Is the formation on the auto-masking mesh face set boundaries? It's not this. Fast navigate. No. No. Pretty sure there is an option there. Mesh boundary. front face. Front face. Okay. That's what I was looking for. I'm going to select my character, bring it back on the ground. And one thing that I'm gonna do too is I'm going to work more on the balance of the character right now. So my character is, I think I can push the torso a bit inside. Wow, no, what is this? I've missed something. Oh no. No. Okay. I think I will be able to recover. Okay, so I was able with the transform tool to recover my mistake. Oh no. Sculpt mode please. And yes, just lost a bit of work because I was trying to open an autosave. Fall off. Where's the fall off? It was in the options. Front face on. Yes. I don't know how I was able to break my symmetry, my model. I will probably look at that when my video will be out. Okay, you know what? Now I'm thinking that my legs are way too large. So what I'm going to try, or maybe it's just my pelvis that is too high. So I'm going to lower down a bit my pelvis. And we're going to sculpt a bit the hands that we didn't touch for a long time. And we're going to go back to the arms too. So now I don't see my eyes anymore. I'm going to push them back where they are. I've messed something, I don't know why. And what. So I'm pretty unhappy with that. And I'm going to add more variety to the silhouette of the torso there. Pushing it back a bit, making the arm a bit more in front. I think we will have to do another video. I think it's too long and too how can I say, too ambitious to make one video of sculpting the whole body. I'm going to continue however, sorry, right now, and then I think I'm gonna cut soon, and we are going to continue our study and to push it further in another video. Okay, so I'm going first to go to the end. So a hand is pretty easy to sculpt because you have one, usually. So you can start messing around with your own hand and see how the anatomy is working. So you can see that the on your thumb you have skin folds that are going in front, and the index finger is creating another skin fold here. And then using clay strip, you can add more details like this. And again, what's important to notice is that, like duck, we have pound fingers, but it's less noticeable. So from the back here, remember to carve in between two fingers, and remember to let a space in between those fingers too. It's really hard to do like this because I need to add the topology option to my brush, even with topology it's pretty hard to do. And with clay strip I'm going to add here, here, and here, and here. I'm going to add my tendons back. Adding the knuckles. So a hand is pretty much bones everywhere. No, there are muscle and fat pads, but it's a lot of bones. At least that's what you feel. So the hands, it's not like the foot. We will have to do more work on them because we usually see them. And I've not much to say here because, as you can see, it's pretty adding masses, correcting masses, and you for this you will have to look at your own hand or to look at some references, but knowing the anatomy of the hand is important, of course, but it's less important than the rest, for me at least, because you have some references in front of you. The things that you need to know is that it's flat usually on the top and it's round below. And here I'm going to add some creases, skin folds. And here I'm going to add a skin folds too. Maybe this one I can, from the thumb, use clay strip, you know, it's to connect it a bit more with the wrist. And I can make the wrist a bit larger. And before finishing this first part of the video, I'm going to work a tiny bit on the forearm too, and then we will call it done for this video. So again, we have this muscle that usually you have a crease there. It's pretty emphasized. So I'm doing it. And there it's pretty straight. And accompanying this muscle, you have some other muscle following it. And here you have more straight muscles. Same thing here, it's more straight. But underneath you have, as I told you, this small part coming out. And it's more like a V shape, you know, here. So I can put the muscle, the fiber in this direction. And then I can try to blend them in a nicer way. And we can feel also here a tendon that I can put and that I can blend. It adds a bit of realism. Can cut a hole of the end inside the pole, making it more realistic. And you know what? For this first part, I think I'm gonna call it done. Sorry. And I'm going to record another video because it's starting to take so much time, and I want to make it perfect. So I realized that I won't have that much time to allocate on this video more. So yes, I hope that you like this kind of video. I hope to see you soon in the next one. I don't know when I'm going to record it, but first I'm gonna see if you first like it, like this. If you like this kind of video, and yes, we'll continue that later, I'm pretty sure. Cutting the external oblique there is pretty important too. So yes, we still have a lot of things to do. So I'm going to call it done right now. I hope you liked it, and we are going to see each other in the next part. Until then, take care, have fun sculpting in Blender. Don't hesitate to post questions, to share this video with your friends if you liked it, and see you soon. Thanks.